Hello everybody, my name is السيد. I'll be working with you on your critical reading skills this term. Together we're going to be doing critical reading, that is reading level code 1302. This level of reading goes a step further from levels 1 and 2. While the first two levels you were introduced to reading skills such as skimming and scanning, at this level we move to looking closely at texts and analyzing them. This level of reading goes a step further from levels 1 and 2, while in the first two levels, as I just said, introduced you to those skills. In this level you will be introduced to critical reading, which is basically looking closely at texts and analyzing them. In this course, you will need to be using your critical thinking skills. It's not going to be simply reading passages for the purpose of comprehension, but it is going to be reading passages in order to think about them and to think about them critically and think critically about what you read. According to scientists, there are 5 levels of intellectual skills as shown in the figure in front of you. And this figure is called Bloom's taxonomy. Whereas levels 1 and 2 were focused on the lower thinking skills of knowledge, that is knowledge, understanding, and application. Levels 3 and 4 move towards the higher thinking skills of analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. You will be able to do this through learning how to discuss both form and content of any text you read. Becoming competent in doing this will help you to develop your basic skills of translation. You're not simply absorbing the information. Instead, you are interpreting, categorizing, questioning, and weighing the value of that information in order for you to be able to provide the best translation you can provide. So in this course, we're going to be focusing on what we call critical reading. But what is critical reading? Critical reading is like an iceberg. That is, in reading comprehension, you apply certain skills and pose questions that result in enhancing the clarity and comprehension. It results in understanding. Your focus is on understanding what the text is saying. But in critical reading, it goes much deeper than that. Critical reading means that a reader applies certain skills and poses questions that result in enhancing clarity and comprehension. There is more involvement, both in effort and understanding, in a critical reading than in a mere regular skimming or just reading for comprehension. A critical reader gets at the depth of the text and not only interpret its surface meaning, but goes deeper to interpret texts and subtext. When reading critically, you analyze and infer meaning to uncover any hidden messages and clarify the intention of the writer. Critical reading does not only depend on your English language capacity, but it challenges your critical thinking as you challenge the text and read in between the lines. As a critical reader, you read a text with an open mind, paying attention to how the writer develops ideas, how ideas are supported, and most importantly, reflecting thoughtfully and objectively about the text. So, in order to be able to read critically, you need to make use of your critical thinking skills. That is our regular reading plus critical thinking would give us critical reading. But what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is about being active as opposed to passive in your learning. That is, you get really engaged with the text. You don't receive. You're not only on the receiving end. You get engaged and involved with the text you're reading. It means that when you approach an idea, you do so with skepticism and doubt, rather than unquestioning acceptance. Always questioning if the ideas, arguments, and findings are the whole picture, and being open to finding that they may not be the whole picture. So, to sum up, what critical thinking is, it's identifying, analyzing, and where possible even solving if there is a problem. To be able to read critically, you need to read slowly and do what we call close reading. That is, reading that is thoughtful and includes critical analysis of a text. Reading that focuses on significant details or patterns in order to develop a deep, precise understanding of the text. So you look at the text's form, the text's craft, and meaning. To read critically is to exercise your judgment about what you're reading. That is, not taking anything you read at face value. Nothing you read is right or wrong. You need to analyze it, and you need to be able to pass your own personal judgment about it. Critical reading goes further than just being satisfied with what a text says. It also involves reflecting on what the text describes and analyzing what the text actually means. It's not taking what the text for granted or for face value. Critical reading means engaging in what you read by asking yourself questions such as, what is the author trying to say? Or, what is the main argument being presented? Or, to put it simply, it's to answer the three main questions: what, how, and why. So, if we compare between reading and critical reading, as we can see in this chart, we can really identify the difference between what you used to do and what you're expected to do in this course. The purpose of regular reading is to get a basic grasp of the text. However, on the other hand, the purpose of critical reading is to form judgments about how a text works. As for intellectual activity, as we have seen in Bloom's taxonomy, the intellectual activity involved in regular reading is absorbing or understanding. But when it comes to critical reading, the intellectual activity involved are much more complex. It's analyzing, interpreting, and evaluating. Whereas the focus of regular reading is what a text says, the focus of critical reading is what a text does and what a text means. When reading for comprehension, we ask ourselves some questions such as, what is the text saying? What information can I get out of it? And it stops there. However, in critical reading, we go much deeper, and the questions we ask ourselves are things like, how does the text work? How is it argued? What are the choices made? Are there patterns? What patterns are result? What kinds of reasoning and evidence are used? What are the underlying assumptions? What does the text mean? That is, not just reading the text, but it's trying to read in between the lines and trying to figure out what actually is the intention of the writer, what is the message, the true message that the writer is trying to convince us of. So our attitude or our direction when in regular reading is we're basically with the text. We take whatever the text says for granted. We never question it. But in critical reading, we're sort of against the text. We question everything. We question its assumptions. We question its argument. We try to interpret meaning in context and try to find out what are the sub-meanings. In this course, you will learn the skills of critical reading and be given tips on how to enhance these skills. You will also be given plenty of opportunities to practice different texts on a variety of topics in a variety of genres, such as weblogs, newspaper articles, scientific research, and literature will be used to help you read critically. But there are a few steps that I would like to share with you that you need to follow to be able to actually read critically. Step number 1, scanning and remembering. This is something that you know how to do, that you have done previously for the past 2 years, 2 terms I mean. So scanning and remembering is remembering what you know about the subject. You just get the information. It is just getting the surface meaning of a text, and that's the very first step of critical reading. Second, creating connections. That is, you start creating connections between what you're reading and other works that you have read before, or theoretical views, or the reality that you know, your own experience. So you read the text and you just, after you get the facts that you have taken in this text, you connect them to your own experience, your own personal experience. Number 3, questioning. You start questioning what is being said. What is the context that whatever is being said is said in? What is the date? What is the author's positionality? Is he with or against? Who are the audience? Who is the writer writing for? Who is targeted? What is the quality of data or evidence that the writer is using to prove his ideas? What is the validity of the argument? Is his argument valid or not? What about biases? Is the writer biased, or is he neutral about the subject that he's writing about? And finally, concluding, and that is your own opinion. What is your evaluation? What the author wants you to think, whether the argument stacks up, and whether you agree or not. Do you think you agree with the writer's point of view, or you have a different point of view? This is all very important when it comes to critical reading. But how do we do those steps? There is something that we call the 5 R's. And these 5 R's are just tips for you to be able to follow these steps. First R, read. Read slowly and reread if you don't get the full picture. Use a dictionary if you can't guess the meaning of a word from its context. You need to read, but you need to read slowly to be able to really understand the text and get its full picture. Second step, record. And that is, by record I mean write down. You need to record or write down any important information. You need to keep a reading journal, and I'll talk more about a reading journal in a minute. Reduce. After you read and you record all your inspirations and all your ideas and all your questions, you start summarizing or reducing the text into the most important keywords and the most important phrases that came out in that text. Number 4, reflect. And by reflect I mean you start thinking about the text, how your ideas fit in with the new information. Do you agree? You don't agree? What do you think of what's being said? What is your own personal opinion? Number 5, is review. You write your main points, you summarize the argument, and you tell us what your opinion is. And if you go through those 5 R's, you have read a text critically. Now, I was telling you about recording, and I was telling you about keeping a reading journal. What do I mean by reading journal? A reading journal is a technique that you use to actually record observations and questions. It is helpful. It's helpful because it helps you remember and engage with the text. Reading journals help you process your experience with reading the text, because if there is something that you don't understand, you can write in the reading journal. If there is something that you want to focus on, you can write in the reading journal. It focuses you on what is significant for you, what is really significant, what's important for you in the text. In your books, you will find that there is a whole list of prompts that you could actually use for keeping a reading journal. And after each reading passage, after each unit, you will find a sample like this, like journal entry, and you just need to fill in. When I read this article, I found it interesting, boring, whatever your opinion is. It made me feel, whatever it made you feel. Was there something you disagreed with? What? Why? These are questions, and there are more questions that I told you that help you delve deeper into the text itself. And keeping a reading journal will help you think critically about the text. Thank you very much. This is all for today, and next time we will start looking at things critically. Thank you.